So today we're going to do two things. Obviously, we're going to answer your questions. We're going to talk about tandem kayaks. I've been asked about that a lot here lately, both at the store and on videos. And then also we're going to do our first drawing for the Temu giveaway. So those of you that watch the Temu video, all the products that I reviewed we'll be giving away. We're going to do one today, one individual, one product. I've got other things to give away, so we're going to do them in future videos. I was a little shocked by the video, though. We were looking at this. So on the Temu video, we had 76 comments. We only had 7 people really do what they needed to do to be in. So all I got to do is just say how long you've been subscribed, roughly. It's not a big deal. Which product that you'd like to receive. And you could do more than one, because if that thing has already been given away, obviously we'll go on to the next thing. But we'll get right into it. So we'll do the drawing here a little later. Of course, you don't have to be present to win or anything like that. But I'll reach out to whoever wins here. But anyways, guys, we'll go ahead and get started here. So tandem kayaks. This is always kind of a funny subject to me, and usually I get it a lot when I'm talking to people in person. When, first of all, let me just do a quick sound and video check with people. How are we sounding? How are we looking here? We're using a different software, so I'm kind of hoping things are looking good here. Let's see. Are you guys hearing the audio? Is the video blurry or anything? Does it look okay? Look decent? That's the next thing. Hoping I'm seeing it. Okay. Yeah, a little bit of echo since we're here in the kitchen. But anyways, guys, we will get into it here. So tandem kayaks, it's usually something that couples, so you're a husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, whatever, you come into a paddle shop and you're looking for a kayak. The first thing that you're going to think about, especially if you enjoy being around each other, is looking into a tandem kayak. It may have been something that we looked at like for a split second, maybe, but I don't think that was ever in, because we enjoy doing things together. Obviously, we enjoy being around each other, but we also kind of like to do our own little thing. So we can go out on the same body of water. We can kind of explore around a little bit or together and still be in our own craft. The funny thing about the tandem kayak market is a lot of them are about the same price as you can get 2 pretty good solo, budget friendly, or maybe slightly less, depending on what tandem you're looking at, obviously. But there are some really good ones out there for those of you that are genuinely interested in tandem kayaks. We've heard them called divorce boats. We call them boomerang boats because they just have a way of coming back. So there are some very good options out there for people that want to have a tandem kayak, but also a kayak that will maneuver well as a solo, moving the seat around. I know if you're looking for a big fishing setup, the Jackson Take 2 is a really good option. You can move the seat to the middle, take one of the seats off, and you've got a really large fishing kayak, solo kayak that can handle a lot of capacity. When you're looking for recreational, one of my favorites is easily the Liquid Logic Stingray 13.5. Frame seating, you can arrange the frame seating around. You can also make it to where it's a really nice solo kayak, and you've got that really nice rocker to it, that curvature from bow to stern. So it's a really good paddle performance. Some of the ones I don't like, obviously your big box brands that sell those. But as far as rotomolded, Perception makes a really good tandem kayak in the Tribe 13.5, and they make a really bad one in the Rambler 13.5. Bad, not that it doesn't float or anything, but it really doesn't perform really well. It's very light duty, and to average or even below average weight adults, you're really not going to look into.
So one thing that he also didn't necessarily mention is Hobie does have tandems as well. Oh, yeah. So we've seen that piece of it. I'm going to come from it from a little different standpoint. Both him and I do refer them to as divorce boats. Him and I, if you stuck us in a tandem, we would probably be smacking each other with paddles.
Mhm.
So that's one thing. The other thing is
Playfully.
yes.
Okay. Yeah. It's
the other thing.
not a domestic situation.
Yeah. So the other thing that comes to mind is actually two things. I've done canoeing before, and I hated the tandem process. It wasn't with him, but I absolutely hated it. I've done it twice, didn't like it. I like being able to go out on my own. However, there are some really good reasons why to do a tandem. We had a couple that came in. The wife was really uncomfortable with swimming, wasn't comfortable with swimming. And so what ended up happening was they decided to go tandem. And she got a lot more comfortable on the kayaks. And when he said boomerang boat, they did bring it back because they decided that they did want to have two separate boats. But for her, it was the process of learning to be comfortable in the kayak and having somebody with her. So in that case, I totally understand it. In the case of having a kid with you, completely understand it. And so it's just finding the right way. Would I suggest fishing with somebody in the boat? Probably not.
No.
Because I'm notorious for just about taking him out even when we're on the shore. And I can't imagine if he's behind me and he's fishing, I can't imagine that I wouldn't get hooked at some point.
That's a really good point. So with fishing kayak specifically, it's you're really close together, and it really does kind of pose a bit of a safety issue. Even if one of you is really, really uncomfortable or really, really comfortable being in an enclosed space and fishing, things happen. And when you're out there on a river or out there in the middle of a lake, the last thing you want to do is to hook your partner with a big treble hook right in the face. It happens enough just in general, but just know that when you're talking about tandem kayaks are typically going to be in that 13 to 14 foot range. You obviously can get really long setups for touring, but we're talking about inland mainly here. And when you're rearing back, or even if you're going to the side and the other person's doing the same thing, unless you've got a really, really good tandem situation as far as situational awareness and spatial awareness, it's really asking for trouble there. And I like, some of the tandem setups, I like the ones that you can run both recreational and with fishing, but there is really, there's really a lot of danger in that with fishing. Now with recreation, that's a different situation altogether there. But.
Dr. Kayak, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
You did bring up another point that's on the comment down below that's saying that you have to be in sync. And yes, heavy. So that's the thing is he talked about the take two. And when I'm looking at tandem kayaks, that one seems to be the one to me that is probably the most sturdiest is the way that I would put it.
Yeah.
And it's a Jackson kayak. So that kind of goes almost without saying in that regard. But yes, they're going to be heavier. And so it's going to be one of those things that you can rig some of these to go solo, but then you have to think about how am I going to be carrying that if I am solo?
Yeah. And the Take Two really, it replaced the Big Tuna, which was the tandem fishing kayak that Jackson had before. And that was a great, that was a great platform. But man, that thing was so heavy, and it was getting, I think the last year they had it was 21, I believe. And it was $18.99. And if they still had that kayak today, that thing would probably be around $2,300 to $2,500. They went back to the drawing board a little bit. They redesigned it. The Take Two is a little bit more, I don't know. You can rig it up really good. It's got a better frame seat on it than Jackson's older, I always call it the stiletto, where all four corners come down to a point down on the hull. But the Big Tuna was a great setup. It had a lot of features in it. And the Take Two I like because it's a little bit more wide open deck space, which I love. It is a heavy duty one, so it is still heavy. Jackson loves heavy kayaks, but there are some really good things out there as far as tandems go. But it's funny, talking to people about tandems, because a lot of times I feel like 9 out of 10 people go the solo route anyway. The tandems, talking to them, it's like, you've got to have two people that want to go together at all times. If you have one person that just isn't feeling it that day, or they don't want to load up, like you said, a really heavy kayak, then you've got a kayak that's not going to be used a whole lot, and it's just going to sit in the garage, or it's going to sit out in the shed, and it's going to come back, which is why we call them boomerang boats. What's up, Southwest? Man, glad to see you here. So we haven't missed a whole lot. We just kind of got on here, and we're talking about tandem kayaks, and we're also fixing to do the drawing for the Temu giveaway, so we can kind of go into that here right now, actually.
And while we're doing this stuff, guys, if you have any questions, we are looking at the comments. So if you have any questions that you want us to talk about specifically, just let us know, and we will absolutely get to those. And
Dana's here. Hey, Dana, thank you so much. That does help the video out, obviously. Hitting the like button, it helps with that that dreaded YouTube and Facebook algorithm. It just helps push the video out. If you like the content, don't forget. If you hate the content, don't forget to pick a fight with me down in the comments below. It's all good. So, all righty. So you have the names there?
I do. We are coffee drinkers, and we got black dogs that you can see one sitting over here behind Andy.
Yeah, as you can hear her drinking earlier.
Yeah, there's 3 of them roaming around. So sorry about that. I'll go ahead and shake these up, and I'll have you choose one.
And again, out of the video, we had 76 comments. 7 people actually did the giveaway rules there. So we've got plenty of other products we're giving away, and we'll do that in future videos. But for today, we're going to do one, and it is
New England Angler with the cup holder.
So New England Angler. And I will reach out to him directly. Got the Temu cup holder. So this is very similar. If you've seen the video, which some of you have, and again, feelings aside on Temu, I'm all. They reach out to me. They let me pick all the stuff I'm reviewing. But I'll reach out to him as well. I've still got the eye bolts here. And then I've still got the dry bags. I've got some other stuff I'll be kind of going over on future videos, not reviews on them, but just stuff to give away. Like I said, they sent me, they allowed me to really send a lot of, get a lot of product. I didn't review all of it. Some of it was just, I got a telescoping fishing rod I'll be giving away. I just, if it makes it past the first fish it gets caught on, but some of the stuff was a little bit gimmicky or almost, I don't know, party gift type stuff, fishing, not quite worth it, but
oh boy, yeah. we got a guest here.
I probably can't see her. There she is.
Coffee, yeah, we're coffee drinkers and we're dog lovers, animal lovers in general. So yeah.
Coffee drinking and fishing doesn't always mix the best though. If some of y'all know what I mean. You get out there on the water early in the morning and you've got about 2 big cups of coffee in you, and that starts running its course, so to speak. And you also had a breakfast. Yeah. That's why a lot of people bring toilet paper with them on the kayak.
Oh, we've got some interesting stories on that one.
Oh my goodness.
With rivers especially.
I forgot all about that. Make sure you're following Uncle David Outdoors. That was kind of who she was speaking about. We went on a float with him, and he was giving us the lowdown on what he does out there if there's no toilet paper available. So
apparently socks are your best friend.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, no, we're really not. We're really not.
All right.
So we got a question here from Bill. Interested in a pedal fishing kayak. I can take my 60-pound dog with me, and I'd like to have him in front, and was looking at a possible tandem. So tandems and kayaks that are roomy and pedal drives is kind of a bit of the unicorn, so to speak. Now, as far as solos, I really like especially for budget friendly, Perception makes one called the Showdown, which those of you that are familiar with the Perception Outlaw, it's the same thing. It's the pedal drive version of that kayak. Two of my favorite paddle kayaks for animals are going to be the Jackson Bite or the Jackson Take Two. It's not a pedal drive, but just because of that open deck setup, you can run a tandem on the new canoe platforms like the Unlimited or the Frontier. I know you can it's probably getting to a point where you can probably find some really good prices on those on the used market, especially the Frontier. Anything you got open deck space on. As far as tandems and pedal drives go, the best bet is to go Hobie. I know Hobie definitely moves the needle on both sides of the spectrum, both love and hate, but they make a couple of different tandem kayaks that are just phenomenal. They are heavy because, again, you got a lot of internal parts, but depending on the size of your dog, which a 60-pound dog, that's basically what we got running around here. Keep in mind, too, if you're taking a dog with you, the temperament of the dog is going to be a very big kind of a caveat on that. So the best way to train a dog is, if you've got it in a shed or a garage, is put a dog bed in the kayak, get the dog comfortable sitting and laying down in that kayak. So when you're taking that dog out on the water, you're not fighting two different battles. One, getting the dog used to being in the kayak, and two, getting the dog used to being on the kayak and out on the water at the same time. It's just, especially if you've got a panicky dog, which 2 of our 3 are in that bucket.
It's the reason they don't go with us.
Yeah.
But he was talking about the Outlaw. So the other thing is placement of the dog, and Outlaw versus Showdown. Showdown is the pedal version. So one of the things that we found out with Zoe really quickly was, in the Outlaw, she actually popped up into the tank well.
Yeah.
And so if your dog is willing to sit, and we've actually watched some YouTube videos recently of people floating the current river, and they had a dog, and this dog was just sitting really nicely in the front tank well.
Jealous.
And I think that's a big part of it, is just how calm is your dog going to be? Because I can tell you, before I was with, this man right here, my dog was great. She's not anymore because she just doesn't know who to be with.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a determining factor. And he mentioned some that are not pedal drive. One of the ones that I kind of really like is the U-Pick. It's the reason I've got it, was because I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, dog up front, it's padded, it's wide open. And we've seen people run 2 seats on that kayak. If you're looking for pedal drive, another one that he didn't necessarily mention, he did, but sort of not really, is the Unlimited, because you can add a pedal drive to it. And that's going to take up a little bit of space, but I feel like you'd still have enough room for a dog.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. You can. It's not going to be very, you can do it. It's not going to be something you're going to enjoy. That is meant to pull instead of push. Most of your other motors are going to be set up on the bow. On the bite, I've seen people do some kind of homemade stuff, and there may even be some aftermarket stuff. The problem with the bite, obviously, is you don't have in-hull access on the front, and what that does, when you're putting a motor on it, you're going to need a plate on it, and to do that on the bite, obviously, you're having to drill into the kayak. They do make an accessory plate that goes on the back of the bite, and there's a mount, a flat transom mount that Yak Gadget makes that goes on the back of the bite. That is nice because that gives you some options for some maybe more budget-friendly options. The clamp-on motors, and you can do the tiller adjustment. Which that's basically it's an extension of your steering handle that comes all the way up to your seat, so you're not reaching all the way back there to do that. New Canoe sells a propulsion system with that tiller arm adjustment, and there's a lot of aftermarket. Specifically, Newport does a kayak motor, and I want to say they do a 35 and a 45-pound thrust that clamp on. I want to say those are like $150 and $199 on those. So they're really good, budget friendly. They're 12-volt motors also, so you don't they don't have a huge draw on them either.
Hey, Bobby, that's a familiar face.
BJ, what's going on, buddy? BJ actually won the Hobie sunglass giveaway. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question there, Doc, on the bite. That's one thing that the bite does fall short on is the options to motorize, at least on the bow. And could that come in future versions of it? I highly suspect it. I know when they brought out the NAR, they made it a little flat on the front for that, but wasn't really the best setup that Jackson's done for motorization. The big rig definitely falls short on that too. So, all right.
Oh, one more thing. I don't know if you guys were aware, this man was on Fishing with Wendell this week.
Oh, yeah.
And so he did a podcast with him. It was on Tuesday. So if you follow, is it Wendell Fishing or Fishing?
Yeah,
with Wendell?
Wendell Fishing. He does a podcast. It's Kayak Fishing Obsessed, and you guys may have seen it. I think that's my second episode with him, and I think my first episode was his most viewed one. So if you guys are watching over there and going, definitely appreciate the support. Yeah, I noticed. I recognized a lot of names, and I'm blessed that I'm really good with names or user IDs here in this case. So, a lot of times when you guys come over to these, I do recognize, I do read all the comments, of course, on the videos and try to reply to pretty much all of them there.
And on Tuesday, if he wasn't replying, I was in the
comments. Yeah, she kind of took over the comment section, so that was definitely appreciated. We did have some technical difficulties on his stream. And actually, surprisingly, it was on his end as well. It kept kicking him off, and then it turned into just the Bearded Paddler show. So
it was entertaining.
So this is a really good point here. So, and we're the same way. We both fish, but I fish a little bit more or fish differently. And specifically, those of you, my first love is rivers and creeks, and going floating. When you're fishing, you can take an 8-hour trip and turn it into a 16-hour trip really, really quick. And we actually did that one year, not with me and her.
Nope.
Nope. I went out with a couple of friends of mine, and we went to, it was Stephen and John, and I think Stephen's son. So it was the four of us. We went out, we floated the Buffalo River. We went from Dillard's Ferry to Rush Landing, which are just 2 access points on it. And it's about 6 to 8 hours, somewhere in there. And I told her that. And we went out really early in the morning. I was expecting to be back before sundown, of course. And this is during the summer, so sun goes down about 8:30, 9 o'clock, around in there. I came home at 11:30.
Yep.
But there's no cell phone signal out there, so I couldn't get out. And I'm just sitting there thinking, we fish so much. I think we spent, and Steven's a lot like I am. He fishes a lot. So I think we probably spent 2 hours at the put-in. So we went really slow. We found a hole. We like to get out and like to fish, or we like to fish it or drop anchor, and we're catching fish like crazy. And it rained on us, and then fish bite really started up. So it got dark, and then we don't have cell signal, but we had GPS signal, so we could see kind of where we're at. And I'm thinking, holy crap, we better get going here. And sure enough, we got to the takeout point, and it was about 10 p.m., but there's zero cell phone signal. We had to get to a point, and the whole time, and she's not a jealous person or anything like that, but I'm sitting there thinking of like, I would be worried sick.
The only thing that was a saving grace in that point was I have a coworker. Her husband is a huge fisherman as well. So I text her and I was like, I'm probably overreacting, because my thing is I'm just thinking something happened to them. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know what? And she's like, don't worry, he's probably fishing. And after that, I was like, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
But back to this whole, she doesn't fish and goes her separate ways. We did that in the beginning for a while, actually. When we first got into kayaking, I did not realize how much this man fished. And so the first couple of times I was a little bored. Yeah. And then I got a little curious. And then I went and got my fishing license because I'm a biologist. So I'm all about following those rules. And then that was the end of that. But we still do go our separate ways. What he doesn't know is I had a better year than him last year.
I know.
But
yeah, I was there.
What he doesn't know is that I actually watch what he does.
Yeah.
And sometimes in the beginning, I'll kind of start following him. And then he taught me about the look for signs of life. I was like, oh, that's easy. And so that's what kind of brings us to different locations. Because for me, when we first started doing the fishing thing, I was chasing butterflies and beavers and otters if I could find them. And he was fishing. So yeah, the whole tandem thing for us, I knew was not going to work.
Yeah. And now she loves the outdoors. So nature and stuff, sometimes I seem to always take just a fishing rod with me, but sometimes we did have some trips where we just wanted to float. I'm not filming or doing anything, just kind of enjoying it. But yeah, not that I don't enjoy filming, but there's some times where I kind of want to enjoy the river and the atmosphere a little bit more without worrying about what I'm saying on screen there. Did get a question here. And I believe I actually talked to you here. So you did sell. Okay. So, sold your Pelican catch mode today and have a Falcon 11 for sale. What fishing kayak do you recommend? So if you're going the paddle route that's another thing. So the thing that I always ask people is, one, what kind of water are you floating on? It's going to be rivers or creeks or lake, primarily. Now, we all like to think we do both of them, but there's a primary use. And then obviously you got your budget there. $2,000 is a pretty good budget. If you're looking at a pedal drive kayak, it will limit things a little bit. I know there's off brands out there. I'm honestly, and those of you that follow the channel know that I'm not the best person to talk to about your box store kayaks and stuff. Just they have a use. Don't get me wrong, but for $2,000, BJ definitely said that you can't go wrong with NuCanoe for fishing. Your primary lakes. Now, if you're looking, the thing that I like about NuCanoe's platform, and I'm not saying they're just the head and shoulders best out there, but they sell a platform that you can add motor to, and they have a pedal drive option as well that you can add called the pivot drive. You can add that to both the Flint, the Frontier, the Unlimited. They are coming out with that 10-foot Unlimited, or more like an 11-foot Unlimited, honestly. You can add pivot drive to that. So not only does it not kind of corner you into only one kayak, but it also allows you to grow, and you can build it incrementally. So you don't have to have a $3,000 or $4,000 budget to get a rigged up fishing kayak. My biggest thing is, doesn't matter if you're just paddling or you're wanting to motorize. Man, if you're on motorized, make sure you're getting your foundation right. Make sure your foundation, don't go buy a $700 kayak and then put a $1,500 motorized, motor system on there.
So one of the other things that we've been talking about NuCanoe a lot, Bonafide, Power 129, SS 127, SS 107, just depending on, how much gear you want to take with you. But those are other good options as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Bonafide, just from my experience on both kayaks, the Bonafide PWR actually does paddle a little bit better than Unlimited. It doesn't track as nice, but it does have a drop down rudder, which fixes that. The reason I bring up not tracking very nice is if you do put a motor on that kayak, it planes across the water very nice. You don't have as much resistance. And I know he's not necessarily looking for the motor, but that's kind of the way the industry is going. So people looking to get into motorizing their kayak, make sure that thing paddles well too. Specifically, I'm talking about the Ascend 133X that everyone sees. Bass Pro just put out their quarterly, fishing guide. And that's the first thing you see on it is you see a kayak. It's got motors and batteries and fish finders and everything on it. Your top speed with a motor on that is going to be about 3, maybe 3.5. When you get a properly designed kayak hull on there, you're going to get quite a bit more speed. You're not going to be draining your battery as much. And the kayak itself is just going to last a lot longer. Essentially, that kayak is basically a really heavy plastic John boat with a lot of resistance in the water, and you're putting a lot of really high-end accessories on there, and it really doesn't do it justice. I mean, it just is what it is. But anyway, I hope that helps. I think we talked on the phone there. And again, I've slept a couple of times since I've been at the store here. Sundays and Mondays is when I'm off here, so I tend to get a little disconnected there. If you have any questions, man, give me a shout at the store again. Congrats on selling the Pelican. The Falcon 11, you really shouldn't have a whole lot of trouble selling that. I think that's one of the best throw and go kayaks out there, just especially for the budget there. But you're definitely not going to have any problems selling that one specifically. And if I remember right, I think you said that thing hardly hadn't even been in the water or at all. Yeah, I like to have a motor. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and personally, I mean, personally with the motors, if you're motorizing something that paddles well, I always thought that motor and pedal drive can be a little bit overkill because typically a bulk of your price is going into that pedal drive technology or the steering system. When you're putting a motor on it, you're basically deleting that. And that's why I'm really happy that some of these kayak companies are designing kayaks that are meant for motorization a little bit for those that don't want to have the pedal drive. You know, you're not paying for the pedal drive, you're paying to motorize it. But yeah, the paddle kayak, I would go honestly with what you're wanting. The two kayaks I would steer you toward is the New Canoe Unlimited and the Bonafide PWR 129. Both of those are within your budget, and in my opinion, they're both the two premium kayaks for having motorization on there. I got a question. Fishing the Mid-South asks, how well does the pedal drive on the Unlimited work? So that's very interesting. It does mount on the back of the kayak, which I love. It's basically like it's a stern mounted trolling motor that you control with your feet is the best way I can describe it. And when you're talking about a 12.5-foot kayak that's 41 inches wide, pushing it from the back, and it's doing two things. It's acting as your pedal drive, and it's acting as your rudder. So you've got the little handle on the side. Those of you that own new canoes, you see those little threaded inserts on your left side. That's what that's for, is the handle. That's your right and left steering. So it does steer it and spin it really, really fast. And it really changes the dynamic of handling a kayak that size, having the pedal drive. The con to it is probably going to be all of that deck space that you have on New Canoe's platform. You are going to be cluttering that up a little bit because it mounts on top of the gear track. You've got a mandrel, you got a big cable that goes to the back that works that prop, but it is belt driven. So it's very smooth and it does kick up. So if you do hit something, it is going to kick up, and you've got a cord that you can pull to bring it back down and lock in place, which is really nice. It's not the perfect system by any means, but I really liked it. I really did. I ran one on a Frontier 12 for a while, which is basically the Frontier 12 and the Unlimited are basically the same kayak, just a little bit of different. The Unlimited's a little bit more rigged up, have a lot more features on it, and it's $100 more. So people tend to go with the Unlimited anyway.
Do you want to try to find a picture of the pedal drive?
Yeah. Let's see.
Find it first.
Yeah. We're going to find a picture of that pedal drive. And some of you that are looking at that, obviously, you've probably seen it already, but I'll just do kind of a screen share here. Okay. So, and what you see here, this is the Unlimited. So you can see that you've got the pedal drive, and it mounts, it's got a big console here that it mounts on these gear track that the seat runs on. And obviously the seat can trim forward and backward. And this is that cable running right along there. It comes from the factory with a little pulley and a little lock cleat, and that's what that's for. But you've got your steering handle right here, and you got this mandrel, this cable that goes all the way to the back, and then there is your prop. So when it hits something, it does kick up, but to bring it back down, you just pull on this little cable here and lock it back down in place, and it does lock. The negative that I've heard is when people are going in reverse really quickly, it does have a tendency to pop it up just like it would if it hit something, but it's really easy now that they have that cable system included. That used to have to be something that people would drill into their kayak and install themselves, but they just started shipping them with it specifically on it. But really good system. The steering mechanism is really solid. A lot of good metal parts on there, which I'm always a big fan of. There's not a lot of plastic on that. But you can see it does clutter things up a bit. So if you like storing, because when I fish, I'm usually laying stuff right across here. I've got all my poles here. I've got loose tackle boxes. I start out organized, and my fishing trip just turns into a giant mess.
Yep.
Christina agrees here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, and you can see here, 2020 and prior models require the big wheel pulley kit, which is not included for retracting. If you've got a New Canoe Unlimited from 21 and forward, it's going to have that on there. The whole system weighs 30 pounds. $12.99 is the current price from New Canoe. And again, you can order that from any paddle shop that sells New Canoe, or some of them have it in stock, which I believe we have one in stock. I could be wrong on that though. All right. So enough of that. But that is the system, and I wanted to show that because that is a very unique system, that New Canoe does. Yeah, and the unlimited, the 10-footer, again, it says 10, but it's 10 foot 10 inches. So I've been calling it the 11. I'm looking forward to seeing that. We should get those here. We should be getting those here next week. So Uncle David has come in, and I guess he's watched. So the sock, man, this thing has gone downhill really quick.
There's a crew.
Where at?
Right here.
We don't sell Crescent, but I do. I've got a customer that owns a crew, and it seems like a solid craft. It really does. It doesn't weigh as much as the Unlimited. The customer that got it, and it's Joe that lives across the street there. So the customer that got it was actually looking at a Take Two, and he was sold on the Take Two, and I believe his son or son-in-law actually bought it for him, and it was the Crescent crew. But he was looking at motorizing it. So one thing he did say, and he's an older gentleman. I wouldn't say he's a huge, he's about average size, I guess. But he did say that it was a little tippy to him. So to me, with a tandem kayak, I personally would rather go a little bit higher on the stability factor, because even if you're extremely experienced and you're a good paddler and you like the secondary, you like leaning into stuff, that person in the front or the back may not. So I like having a little bit more of a stability on the tandem setups just for that, because usually the second person you're taking is either going to be a beginner, it's going to be your wife, your husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, and they may not be experienced, or they may not be about that life, if that makes sense. If you get somebody in something that feels tippy, usually the biggest thing that people will do is they will overcorrect. So they're panicking. If they're leaning to the left, they're going to overcorrect to the right and then flip back over. And if one person flips over in a tandem kayak, you and your gear are going in there as well. So for that reason, I do like the New Canoe Unlimited. The crew will probably paddle a little bit better and go through the water a little bit more, but that is the trade-off. You are going to give up some stability. And with Crescent specifically, they kind of couple really high seating with a really rounded hull design, and that's not usually the best options. Even if you're experienced, if you were to hit something or get sideways just a little bit, that combination is usually going to have you falling over. So, and the people I know that own the Crescents, whether it's the Crew or the Shoaly, they've had experience with that same thing. So. That's a good question. So Jake asks about, he's going to buy a Titan 12.5 with an XI3. How much benefit does a rear trolling motor add? So the rear motors are more of an electronic outboard motor more than a trolling motor. So I'm talking about the Newports, the Torqeedos, all of that. Speed-wise, they're substantial. Cost-wise, as far as battery goes, the cost is also substantial. Me personally, if you've got a pedal drive and a motor, you're going to use them for different reasons, or I would. For me, my pedal drive is going to get me to the spot where I want to go to. My trolling motor is going to keep me where I want to go or troll me along a bank while give you that hands-free fishing. That's the benefit that the rear does do, though. So if you got a rear motor on there, that thing is going to get you a lot faster. It's not going to have your spot lock or anything, but it's just going to get you there. It's going to zoom you out there, just like you see the big motors on the back of your bass boats. It's pretty much the same thing, just in a much smaller package. I know the Newport NK300 is a 3-horse motor, which that doesn't sound like a lot. That's a lot on a kayak. And there's been people getting speeds up to around 6.5 miles an hour on those. You know, the XI3 is really good. I know when I had an unlimited, I was getting right at about 5 on it, which doesn't sound like a huge difference, and it's really not. But again, I use my motor primarily to just, for the spot lock. I may get to an area if I'm not going a great distance, but if you're going a great distance, those rear trolling motors are pretty substantial for that. Seems like having the motor on the stern would make it easier when launching the kayak. It does to an extent. I've ran the XI3 substantially for a better part of a year on an unlimited. And usually what I would do is I would keep it up in the boat. And then when I would just paddle it, I would keep a paddle with me. I'd paddle it out till about, a couple of foot of water and then drop it down and then go. It depends on your needs. If you're needing to cover miles, then the stern mount is going to be where it's at. If you're needing to cover miles with a bow mount motor, you're not going to get a great amount of speed, and you're going to be using up a lot of juice doing that.
Yeah, and for us, where we're at, we have so many launch points on Norfolk and Bull Shoals Lake, so we would just get as close to the area as possible. Mm-hmm. And there's an area specifically by Cranfield that him and I would use the XI3 a lot for, because we would have to actually go across where there's pretty big boat traffic. So that was really nice, and that did enough for us, but we weren't covering tons and tons of water. We kind of got to as close as where we could get to, and then use the XI3 for that. Yeah.
And I would tow her. So she was in a Jackson U-pick, and instead of tow her behind me, I would throw my leg over her kayak, and that was just not efficient at all.
No, but it was fun because both of us would have one leg over on the other's kayak.
And then we're instead of traveling like this, we're traveling like this. And what happened was the water going in between there was constantly trying to do this to the boats. And I'm just sitting there, I'm video game fishing, basically. I'm right and left to try to keep this thing straight because of all the drag on the side of it. But hey, it works. We could have more easily tied a strap to the back handle and to her front handle and done that. But well, you're in water. I'm kidding, of course, but yeah, it's
that's priceless.
Hillbilly tandem.
Yep.
That is facts. God, the setups that I grew up fishing out of, I could go all day on that. Aluminum boats with oars on the side of it, throwing it in the back of a truck and tying it down with baling wire. Let's see. So I had a question here, and I understand getting wet. I get it, especially this time of year when it's really cold, because there's not really much of an off-season fishing wise in Arkansas here or Missouri, but up north, they're probably you're going to be putting them in the garage there for half the year. Has a comparative speed energy required to the mid-mount autopilot from Old Town. So the autopilot from Old Town, I know, is very popular. There's a lot of things about it, though, that you get more out of with some of the other setups. So a lot of people like the convenience that it comes from the factory. The trolling motor that comes in the autopilot is a 45-pound thrust. The XI3 from Motor Guide is a 55-pound thrust. That is pretty substantial power difference there. Now, there does come quite a bit more draw. You're going to get a lot more of an amp draw from that motor. So just know that you're going to need more of a battery than you have to have on the autopilot. But to me, honestly, I would like to see them update. Again, we're starting to sell Old Town starting this year, but I would really like to see Old Town update the autopilot personally. The autopilot is really, it kind of turned the industry upside down when it came out, but I feel like it's been passed by quite a few kayaks out there. And namely, again, I keep going back to the same kayaks, but the Unlimited and the PWR, you can outfit those up with a bow mount trolling motor with spot lock, a better, a more powerful motor. You have battery storage built into those kayaks, or those kayaks are made for it, and you can get into those setups about $1,500 less, and you get, again, a little bit more power out of that. So, is it a great kayak? Yes. Is it the perfect kayak? No.
The other thing, because we saw one of these the other day, the other thing to consider is where that mid mount is almost where a pedal drive would be.
Yeah, precisely.
And so when you're thinking about where that's located, what he talked about with the speed and energy, get all of that. Mm. But I'm also thinking about, where is my gear going? Yeah. And to me, that bow mount on the Unlimited, having seen that, also having seen the autopilot, to me, I like the openness of where that mid mount motor is.
Yeah. And with the autopilot 136, that is substantially bigger. So you're talking about a 13.5-foot long kayak, and that thing is huge, but it's also about 160 pounds with all of that on it. And it's a monstrosity, not in a bad way. It's a very large kayak, but to get the room that she's talking about, you have to go with the much larger kayak. And like I said, there's some options out there. That kayak brand new is also $5,000, and it doesn't come with the battery. So those are all things to kind of think about. Is it a great kayak? Absolutely. Does it need a little bit more? I'd like to see them put a little bit more of a powerful option in it instead of just the 45-pound thrust, because with the Unlimited and the Bonafide, you're talking about around an 85-pound kayak versus 150 pounds, and you got 10 more pounds of thrust with the power on it. So I hope that helps, or I hope that makes sense there. We do kayak demos, and I think somebody asked up here also. And I'm not trying to skip over people here, but I think somebody also asked if our store does a demo day. We have in the past. We're not going to this year, but if somebody's got something they're looking at and they want to try it first before they buy it, yeah, absolutely. We can demo anything that you guys want to do. With our shop specifically, or any paddle shop out there that are closer to you guys, make sure you call them ahead of time and make sure they got the manpower and the resources to do it on that day. Same thing with us. We're kind of getting into that busy season now, or we're pretty much already in it. It's kind of started a little earlier this year, but just make sure we've got people there, and then I can take you out and we can demo what you're needing there, and kind of get it narrowed down there for you.
Yeah, and I can speak to that too, because I know that there was in quick succession. It may have not been last year, it may have been the year before, but in quick succession, we actually had two couples that wanted to demo. Somebody was wanting to do an unlimited, and then there was a husband and wife. They were looking for a boat for the wife, and so we did a couple of demos with them. The big thing was just making sure that we had somebody at the store so he could go, and then I came with just for an extra person.
In my opinion, it does. And I after I answered it, I kind of thought that too. Is I don't think so. To answer your question, I believe it does. I think the placement. Is it a night and day difference? No, but I think what happens with that particular placement in the mid is it makes it a little bit more convenient. But again, most of these are stable enough to do off the front, and you can still access it if it's a kind of an open deck concept. But you're not going to get really more speed or efficiency being in the middle. The efficiency comes with the autopilot being a lower thrust. You're not getting as much speed, but you're also not using as much power. So you don't need a big 100 amp hour battery to run all day on that. I hear you on the short bed. As far as motor goes, on the U10, personally, I would do the XI3. I know new canoes have the flat transom on it, and I know they're really geared toward doing that as well. But the XI3 on a lighter 10 foot, 10 inch kayak, that's going to be really nice. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that. You can also still use the gear pod on the Unlimited 10, just like you can on the larger version and the Flint. And I think running those two in conjunction with, I believe they're $15.99, the U10 coming out. To me, an 11-foot kayak is basically, that's going to be a little bit friendlier for rivers and creeks. That's going to be still plenty good for lakes. And in my opinion, I hope I'm right on this, it may be a better all-around kayak.
Dr. Kayak, Andy's about to pull up that comment. That is absolutely true. Him and I were actually talking about this yesterday.
Yes.
We rigged up he rigged up an Unlimited with an XI3 on the bow. And we're thinking like, okay, if you get a lead acid battery, it's definitely got to go in the back, because you kind of have to make sure that you're balancing that out. And he was running a lead acid just because we didn't know what we wanted to do initially. And that's what we did, is we kind of balanced out the weight of it. Because if you put too much weight on the front, you're asking for a little bit of trouble.
Yeah. And I was demoing it for the store. So I own the kayak, but the trolling motor was property of the store. So I just bought a lead acid battery. I went with a 100 amp hour battery, and it was the Mighty Max. And it was $170. So it wasn't the $600 lithium batteries. If I owned that setup just permanently, I would have went lithium. But man, that
how much did it weigh?
63 pounds on the 100 amp hour. And again, with the Unlimited, you get a 600-pound weight capacity. That is with the scupper plugs in. So keep that in mind too. But it did handle all that weight with my big rear end in there, and a heavy battery and the motor on the front. But like you said, the fact that the seat trims the length of the kayak, you really had to play with that, because if the bow is up or down, that obviously affects the efficiency of that motor. So, I always had to recognize where my gear was stored and how much. This is also a good thing. So I have a GMC Sierra crew cab, and it's a 2012, and I'm blessed with that 5.5 foot short bed. And I've got one of the best things, and the first things I bought when I started working at the store was the Yakima long arm. Now I know there's a Harbor Freight kit out there. I know Boondocks does the T-bone bed extender. I like the Yakima one the best because it adjusts both down and up, and I keep it on my truck full time. So when I'm not using it, I've got it going straight up. When I'm ready to use it, I just bring it down. It adjusts out for length. It adjusts down for your different setups. and it's got a 300-pound weight capacity, and it's off-road rated. So that just means it's going to handle a little bit of a rougher terrain. The bolt that goes to the hitch is threaded onto the receiver there. So that just means you're not going to get a lot of that play back and forth, and it's going to handle some of those really heavier setups. And honestly, the best thing about those bed extenders is use them as load assist. You know, it's a round bar that goes across, put the tip or the back of the boat up on there, go to the other side, pick it up, and then you can slide it on that bar into your truck. So I'm definitely a huge fan of the bed extenders. They're all around the same price. I know the Harbor Freight one's a little cheaper, but I want to say the Boondocks one is about $250, $260. The Yakima one's $249 currently still, I believe. And we have a hard time keeping those in stock because I've run one on my truck, so people see it all the time, and it's just nice to show people what that looks like here.
Before we move on, one of my coworkers, he has a Nissan. Is it a Titan?
Yeah. No, it's just a Frontier, I think, the 4-door Frontier.
Yeah. So he's got one of those little Nissans and Nissan trucks, and he's got the short bed. And I will never forget, we live maybe a mile from each other, and he's actually really close to the store. I remember seeing him at Sonic, and he has a Pungo 125. And he was going to Tennessee or Kentucky, I believe. And I remember seeing him, I'm going, man, he needs a bed extender, because I mean, the way he had it jerry rigged was hilarious to me when I first saw it. So he started talking to me when he came back from that trip, because I was like, did you run into any trouble with that? And he's like, we had to stop a few times. And he got that thing last year, and he absolutely loves it. And so even on a smaller truck, that bed extender, he said, has been a huge difference maker, because he tends to go on trips with a lot of like former college friends. And so they tend to load his truck up now with that bed extender.
All right, guys. Well, we're kind of getting close to the hour mark here. So we're going to start shutting it down. But if you guys, those of you that are interested in the Temu giveaway, again, I've got plenty of products here that I'm going to be giving away. And then I've still got, it was the cup holder that's now no longer available. I've still got the eye bolts. I've still got the dry bags. I've got some other stuff I'll go over with on future live streams. But if you haven't already, go on the Temu video. All you got to do is just say how long you've been subscribed. Roughly, have you been with me for a long time? Just put a long time. And then which products you want. If you've already done that, I've got your name in the hat here. We'll just keep it in there for next time. Next week, we'll do another drawing for another product. But again, there's a lot of opportunity to get stuff, because again, it's, there wasn't a whole lot of people that did that. A lot of comments, but not a lot of people did that. And maybe I didn't announce that on the intro to the video very much. So you're welcome. Hey, thanks for tuning in, guys. Because again, these are definitely, they're worth it, but they're definitely not worth it if you guys aren't tuning in and interacting. So I definitely appreciate that, and definitely, and again, thanks for showing support on the videos. Again, if it's a video you're not really interested in, I totally get that. But that's one thing I've tried to do here in the last several months is get a little bit more content out there that more people enjoy. And, try to do a little bit more on the production value of it, because it's not just me holding my cell phone anymore talking. The saltwater, real quick, I'm not sure. I want to say it's maybe $100 more. A lot of people run that setup even inland here, just because I guess it's sealed better, or it's got some different components. Personally, I haven't had any issues with the freshwater ones. But if you're doing some multi-water, or if you're doing some really nasty water, that might be an option for you there. You can go to Motor Guide's website and check that out. We can get them, of course. We order them through New Canoe, honestly, because New Canoe, they ship directly from Motor Guide going through that. If you guys anywhere locally here in Ozark, in Missouri or Arkansas, or even Oklahoma, Tennessee, we can get those for you too. If you're interested in having one of us do an install for you, again, if you buy it from us, we do not charge to install them. So keep that in mind.
Dawn, real quick, you just said the tandem did not last long. We didn't expect it to. We Dana actually mentioned the one-on-one. That's kind of what we live for in the live streams, is we're really looking to answer more of your questions and give you guys our thoughts. Is kind of if you've got questions for us, we are absolutely here to answer those.
And again, with tandems, my biggest thing is getting it from a quality manufacturer. So your Jacksons, your Liquid Logics, even Perception. To me, Perception is the best budget-friendly quality kayak manufacturer. And I say that just because they make some of your lower budget, but they still use a really good roto-molded process, which is, again, that's a one-piece kayak. They're owned under the same company umbrella as Pelican and all that, but they still maintain their U.S. presence. They still do. They have one of the best processes for roto-molding a kayak as well, and they make a solid kayak. So Perception's probably the lowest I would go on a tandem kayak. Again, those Rambler 13.5s, they're good for kids, but they're not really good for 2 full-grown adults. But the Tribe 9.5s with the frame seat back, they do a Targa tandem now, which Targa is kind of a great recreational kayak, Targa, and it's called the Targa 130. They came out with it last year, and that's a really solid looking one as well. Very stable. And that's the one that's got the soft-sided cooler built into the back and all that good stuff. But definitely, Don, if you got any questions, man, just let us know down in the comments. Even after the live stream, I'm still reading the comments and replying to those. But thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Have a good